Hey everybody, this is Adam, just throwing in a note here. You're going to hear that this is the final episode of the Sales on Demand show because I am taking on a new project and I want you guys to follow me. I'm hoping that you'll follow me because this is going to be a huge project. You can find out more by going to the website redpilledbooks.com. Just throw your email in there. redpilledbooks.com. And now into the final episode of the Sales on Demand show. Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Sales on Demand show. You know me. I am Adam Schneider, your host. So today I'm doing a podcast while I walk because I like to walk, so I have to apologize if there's any noises for wind or anything like that. There's not really that much wind here, but there's a light breeze, so hopefully it's not too big of a deal. But somebody wants to turn into the driveway. Yeah, I want to get out of my office and just finding myself inside my house too much. So I got to get out and get some fresh air. I'm trying to do about, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 hours of walking every week. On days that I don't do any running, that is. So that every single day I'm on my feet. So this is going to be an interesting episode. And I kind of struggled with how to put this out there. So I started this podcast a long time ago. I've almost even lost track of how long ago it was that I started this podcast. And this was back like 2019 or something. It might have even been earlier than that. And I had a vision for this that eventually kind of took shape into me creating a training course. And that was my vision for this podcast. I wanted to talk about print on demand. I wanted to just, explore all of these ideas. And then, I launched a training course and I sold, quite a few of those. Did some good work with that. Then I got this role as a coach. And so I've been working in that role as a coach for a while. And I must confess that listen, this is straight from the heart here. I sometimes get sick of talking about business because I'm doing it every single day. Now, I'm not sick of doing my business, but it takes a lot of energy to talk about it. So it can be a real challenge to sit down and just talk about it more on a podcast. Then on top of that, I'm not really promoting the course that I built because it kind of overlaps with the other training that I do. So it's redundant at this point. It takes a lot of work to create training, and then you got to keep it updated, right? So if something changes, then you have to re-record and update the training, and then it's like, well, that's a lot of work. You got to keep promoting it, which is all stuff that I would do were I not, working as a coach. So I kind of have, I don't want to overstep my bounds and start trying to build something that is going to, take away from what I'm already doing. And then there's this idea of vision. So I had a vision for this podcast when I first got started, and I've kind of drifted away from that a little bit. And something else has popped up in my mind that I really want to start doing. And it's very different. And I've been thinking about it for a long time. In fact, this was my original passion. So I'm going to take you on a little journey here back to when I was a kid. I was a bit of a dork, I guess you could say. Maybe a lovable dork, but I was still very much a dork and just kind of quiet. And one thing that I loved more than anything was reading. Now, what I loved to read was fiction. So I'd read anything. I'd read the dictionary, I'd read encyclopedias, but I loved fiction. So I read hundreds of books when I was a kid. Hundreds upon hundreds. I would be reading at night. I'm supposed to be going to sleep. I'd have a flashlight and a book under my blankets. I was that kid. The trope of a kid staying up late at night reading. That was me. And then I couldn't even stop myself from reading books while I was supposed to be learning in school. So I would bring a little book into the class and I would read while the teacher was teaching. And inevitably I would get caught and he would take the book away and, I would just do it again because, I was just bored. I just didn't want to listen to some guy rambling on about mitochondria. I wanted to read a book. I wanted to live in a different world, a more interesting world. So I've always loved reading. I've always loved books. That hasn't stopped. Even though I don't have time to sit and read as an adult, I still love books, except I consume my books in a slightly different fashion. I listen to them now. So instead of sitting down to read, I will put on an audiobook. And I've probably got 200 audiobooks in my Audible library. Maybe another 50 that I've just somehow, maybe downloaded totally legally and consumed just by listening to the MP3 file. But basically, if I'm doing something that is boring, I need something to listen to. Podcasts are great too. I love podcasts. I probably listen to like 4 or 5 different podcasts on a semi-regular basis. But books are, they're just great. And when I find a good book, I try to make it last as long as I can. Because you can only get so much out of it, And then, later on, maybe I'll listen to it again, maybe after a couple of years, and I've forgotten the story a little bit. But I'm still an avid reader, even if I don't read the books. I love the stories. So that's always been in my personality. I don't talk about it much because it's not something that's particularly special. But when I was younger, maybe, 14, between 14 and 18, high school, I wanted to write. And so every chance I got to do any writing, I would write. I would write silly stories or sometimes stories that got me in trouble with teachers because maybe they had too much violence in them or something. No, that was the real thing. I wrote a story and then the teacher was like, this is too violent because somebody died in the story. And so she made me rewrite it. So I did. But I loved it. I loved writing. It was never a chore for me to sit down and write a story. And I've probably written, I've written the equivalent of a book, maybe a book and a half, and just never done anything with that. When I became an adult and I got married, we had a baby, and that baby is now 19 years old. But I got some time off from work, and that was called parental leave. So I sat down and I started writing a book, a proper book, on my little IBM laptop, which, that was almost 20 years ago now. I still have the manuscript of that book somewhere saved. I made sure that whenever I was switching computers that I always kept a copy of it, because I thought, I'm going to take this up again someday. I'm going to get back into this because I have to. And every few years, it would pop in my head that I wish I could just be a writer instead of whatever I'm doing right now. And I would get that feeling like, oh man, I got this great story idea and I want to write it. I want to write a book about it. I want to write it as a book. Now, I just was too busy to make any of that happen. And I think you maybe know where this is going because, now I have no excuse. I don't really have that same excuse of I'm too busy because I have much more control over my time than I did back in those days. Like I don't have a 9-to-5 job and I have so much more knowledge about marketing that in the last, 12 to 18 months, I don't really know exactly how long this has been festering in my brain, but I've been thinking about this, like I could write this, and it started to take shape in my mind. The blurriness of a story that's unwritten has started to coalesce into an actual like crystallized form. And so maybe 2 months ago, I sat down and I wrote out just the outline of about 9 books. And I thought, okay, now what? So I've got this outline and I'm like, yeah, I want to write this. But it takes a lot of work to write a book, and never mind 1 book, 9 books. And so if I write 1 book, I can't just quit. You got to carry through. You don't find success with the first thing you do. It's always a series of continuous actions. You move forward, you do something, you move forward, and you keep doing it, and you keep working hard, and then success comes. So, this is going to be, a multi-year project, but I can't ignore it any more than I can ignore, if my wife was telling me something, it just keeps nagging at me. And I've realized that I think the Sales on Demand show has had its time, and it's time to put this show on hiatus. Not that I want to stop podcasting. I have no intention of quitting podcasting, but it takes a lot of energy and focus to do anything. And if I'm going to do something, then I want it to be something that I have vision for, that I'm going to utilize and exploit, and that's pushing me forward in what I really want to do. So the Sales on Demand show is going on hiatus. However, if you are a listener to the show, I'm going to be putting out 1 more episode as a redirect. So you can find me on my new podcast. I don't have a link or anything for you yet. I haven't actually gotten that far. But I thought maybe I'd tell you how this is going to look, because I'm very excited about it. So, of course, as you suspect, I want to write this book, but more than that, I don't think I want to write it in the traditional way of, sit down at a computer and start clacking keys. I don't find that I get any inspiration doing that. And quite frankly, I just don't need any more time sitting in front of a computer. That's the last thing I need in my life, is more screen time. God knows I get too much already. I got to drag myself out of that office, as often as I can, get my feet moving. I love being outdoors. I can't get enough of being outdoors. So how do I do this? Well, I kind of already know that dictating a book is a thing. I looked into it, a couple years ago, and I find out that yes, people, they will dictate a book rather than type it out. So I thought, okay, I think I could do that. And in fact, I think that would be more effective because the story's playing in your mind. You're almost living it out in, real time. So it might be better from a creative standpoint because you're not tethered to some kind of keyboard. I don't know. It just seems to make sense to me in my head that this would be a better way to do it. I don't particularly care for typing. I sit and type all day long, writing emails and responding to people on Facebook or whatever. And I'm like, I don't want to do more of that. So, no, I'm not keen on typing this out. And I don't have to. They have something now that's existed for, probably like 15 years, and it's basically voice to text. There are computer programs that will take audio and transcribe it. You used to have to pay somebody to do this, but now they have, software that can do this. And it's pretty accurate. They even have it on your phone, right? So when I respond on, Facebook or something like that to a message, half the time I'm not typing it out just because I don't feel like typing. So I'll just voice to text. And that's way easier and way more convenient because I can talk for an hour, but I don't think I could type for an hour. I would be wiped. So here's my strategy. I am going to podcast my book in real time. And I'm going to write it as I'm podcasting. Now, I will have an outline because, you need an outline. Can't really just wing it from the hip. The story could probably suffer from some serious drift if I didn't, put some kind of outline. So I'll have each scene, each movement in the story put into an outline, and I'll just have it as a reference, and I'll refer to it. But then I'm just going straight from the hip, and I'm going to see how that works. I don't know if anybody's ever done this before. It would be difficult to believe that nobody's done that. But if they have, I don't know about it. So this is kind of an interesting method, and I think it's going to work. May have to edit the audio to remove, dead spots or something like that. Because sometimes you got to sit and think for a minute. So that's fine. I'll edit out any dead spots, and if there's anything that goes awry, I'll re-edit that. But mostly this is just going to be, I'm going to write a story, and I'm going to write it on a podcast. And then I'll transcribe that to text, and I'll edit that and then publish that as the book. Now, I don't know. I've thought about how I want to publish it, and I've had a few thoughts on this. I'm reluctant to go the traditional route, although I'm not 100% reluctant, because I think I can publish this without traditional publishers. For sure, I'm not going to get a publisher. I'm going to self-publish, but the question is, am I going to release it on Kindle? Am I going to release it on Audible? I kind of want to do that, but I have a feeling that the content of this book is going to be a little less palatable for mainstream publishing sources. Not that it's going to be something crazy like, Alex Jones or anything, but it's going to be very unwoke. It's going to be very contrary to the opinions of mainstream media, or I call it mainstream, of corporate media, corporate interests. And so I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm relying on Amazon to, push my book, and then only to find out that they've suppressed it. So that would be bad, right? If I'm going to rely on my own ingenuity to market this, and I already have a marketing plan, kind of drafted up. I don't also want to have to give a cut to the people who hate me and are just hosting the book for for whatever purpose. So I'm still trying to come up with a strategy to make it easy for people to read the book without having to rely on these big publishing companies that probably would not appreciate what I'm trying to do and will actively work against me, or just won't help me very much and will take a big cut of the money, right? So I'm still kind of thinking through that, and I've got a few ideas. One of them is creating an app that you download and then you subscribe. It's what I'm seeing a lot of conservative media people do, like Ben Shapiro, and he just live streams from inside the app, and you sign in, you pay, and then that's it. So I think maybe that would be one strategy, and then marketing. But the beauty is, I know a lot of people, I have a lot of connections, and I think this is something that a lot of people would be interested in consuming, is books with a good story that are not all about, transing your kids or something like that. I'm not trying to fight a culture war here. I just want this to be good entertainment, but with a more conservative audience in mind, because that's something that I like, and I don't see it out there. Most of the books that I read are from authors who are just not very conservative at all. Series like The Expanse. I liked The Expanse. It was a good series. I haven't watched the show. I heard the show was good too. I don't really watch TV, so I don't think I'll ever watch The Expanse, but the books were great. The problem is that they're just very, they got a lot of cultural stuff that I just don't care for. And so I can enjoy the story, but I just don't care for the cultural leaning of it. So I want to write books that have great stories and also the kind of cultural push that I want. So, that's the plan. Now, maybe hopefully you're disappointed that this Sales on Demand show is going on hiatus. I am not stopping my business. I'm still coaching. I have no plans on stopping that anytime soon. It's just a matter of taking my time, which is my most valuable resource, and not even, I wouldn't say that time is my most valuable resource. Energy is my most valuable resource. Focus. So taking some of that focus and diverting it to something that I think is a worthy project. You perhaps will remember that I was talking about doing a Shopify store. Well, I don't really care about that. I could do that, but that would take up all my time, and it wouldn't have the kind of impact that I want to have. This is a project that has been sitting on my mind and my heart for more than 20 years at this point. And so if I don't do this now, I don't know if it'll ever happen. But I can't not do it. I can no more not do this than I can, not breathe or not walk or stop exercising or something like that. It's just, I was born to do this. So that's it. I'm going to have another very short episode to give you a link to follow me on whatever I do next. And that will be it for the Sales on Demand show. Thank you so much to everybody who has followed me over these years. I do appreciate all of you. I've even had a chance to meet a few people who are listeners. I get feedback from a few people on Facebook. I always appreciate that. And I'm sure that there will be more of that to come because, I'm very excited about this. So that'll be it for this episode. We'll see you guys one more time.